The gavel struck like a gunshot, echoing through the cold courtroom. Mr. Ryan Carter, this court finds you guilty of fraud and breach of contract. You are hereby sentenced to 5 years in prison and restitution of... The rest of the judge's words blurred. My vision tunneled. My hands clenched into fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. The world had just caved in. A murmur spread through the crowd. I caught glimpses of familiar faces. Former business partners who once shook my hand with enthusiasm, now watching with barely concealed smugness. The same people who had built me up were now here to witness my destruction. Next case, the judge barked. The guards closed in, cold steel wrapped around my wrists. No, this is a mistake. I didn't. A shove between my shoulder blades silenced me. My lawyer, a man I barely trusted but could barely afford, avoided my gaze. As I was led away, I spotted the man who had orchestrated this entire nightmare, Richard Vaughn. He sat in the gallery, a polished smile on his lips, adjusting the cuffs of his custom suit. The man I once called mentor, the man who framed me. They let me out after 14 months. Not because of justice. Justice had nothing to do with it, but because the evidence against me had been fabricated. My appeal exposed enough cracks in the case to grant me an early release. But by then, the damage was done. I stepped out of prison with nothing but a plastic bag containing my old wallet, a dead phone, and the clothes I was arrested in. My bank account were empty. My reputation was in shreds. No job, no friends, and no place to go. The first night out, I slept under a bridge. The second night, in a bus station. Hunger became my constant companion. The streets were an unforgiving teacher. I learned where to find food scraps. Which shelters had the worst fights. People avoided eye contact with the homeless because it reminded them they could be next. One night, as I huddled on a sidewalk with my back against a brick wall, a familiar figure strolled past. Richard Vaughn, exiting a luxury restaurant. A black town car idled at the curb. A woman in a silk dress held onto his arm, laughing at something he whispered. He saw me, stopped, smirked. Ryan Carter, he mused. How the mighty have fallen. I didn't move, didn't blink. He crouched beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, leather and power. You should have taken my offer, but you were too proud. Now look at you. You stole my company, I said through clenched teeth. Correction, I took what you weren't smart enough to protect. He patted my shoulder like I was a stray dog. Enjoy rock bottom. I watched his polished shoes disappear into the car. The engine roared and he was gone. That night, I made a vow. I would rise again. And when I did, I wouldn't just win. I'd destroy him. Survival became a daily battle. I found odd jobs, loading trucks and washing dishes. Anything to keep moving. One day, I overheard 2 businessmen talking about a new startup. They complained about inefficiency and how their data was a mess. I used to be a financial consultant. I knew how to fix their problem. So I walked up to them. I can solve that for you, I said, shoving down my pride. They glanced at my worn-out clothes and my unshaven face. One scoffed. The other hesitated. How? I grabbed a napkin and scribbled down a quick breakdown of how they could streamline their process, cut costs, and boost revenue. 5 minutes later, one of them handed me a business card. Come to my office Monday morning, he said. If you're not full of crap, I'll pay you for your time. I walked into that office with nothing. I walked out with my first consulting gig in over a year. It wasn't much, but it was a crack in the wall, a way back in. For months, I clawed my way up. One gig led to another. I slept in hostels, saved every dollar, and built my reputation back from the ashes. Then I met Natalie Green. She was sharp, ambitious, and had connections. More importantly, she believed in me. You got talent, Ryan, she said one evening over coffee. I know investors looking for someone like you. Someone with experience in finance, but a fresh start. An opportunity. A real one. I threw myself into the work. We built a financial tech startup together. Late nights, early mornings. Investors bought in. Money started flowing. For the first time in years, I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And then, just when success was within reach, I walked into our office one morning to find everything gone. Bank accounts drained. My name was wiped off the company's registration. Natalie was gone. So was the money. A single email from her sat in my inbox. Nothing personal, just business. I stared at the screen, numb. Not again. But this time, I wouldn't fall apart. I had learned my lesson. No more trust. No more partners. I would build something so powerful that no one could take it away from me. I disappeared from the public eye. For 2 years, I worked in silence. I took what I had learned, finance, business, power moves, and started something new, something untouchable. Instead of looking for investors, I became one. I studied markets, trends, and industries. I reinvested every dollar I made. By the time anyone noticed, I wasn't a struggling ex-con anymore. I was a ghost who owned half the city. Real estate, stocks, a private tech fund was hidden behind layers of shell companies. Then came my final move. I acquired Vaughn Industries, the same company Richard Vaughn had stolen from me. The deal was silent. The moment he realized I owned him, it was too late. And Natalie? She resurfaced, looking for a new investor. She didn't recognize me under my new alias. Until I walked into the meeting. Her face turned white. Ryan. No, I corrected. Mr. Carter. She tried to explain. I let her talk. Then I slid a contract across the table. Sign it, I said, or lose everything. She signed. One evening, I walked into the same luxury restaurant Richard Vaughn once mocked me outside of. This time, it was me stepping out of the town car. This time, it was him sitting at the bar, staring at the news on his phone. The headline? Billionaire Ryan Carter acquires Vaughn Industries in surprise takeover. I sat beside him, ordered a drink. He turned his face pale. You should have finished me when you had the chance. He swallowed hard. What do you want? I took a sip of my whiskey. Nothing, I said. You're already finished. The night after I acquired Vaughn Industries, I sat alone in my penthouse, looking over the city that had once chewed me up and spit me out. The skyline shimmered in the distance, but my mind was fixed on one thing. Richard Vaughn. Owning his company wasn't enough. I needed to bury him. I scoured Vaughn Industries' financial records, looking for weaknesses. And then I found it. A tiny, overlooked folder buried deep in the system. Legacy accounts. I clicked. Dozens of files popped up. Shell companies. Unreported assets. A hidden offshore account. Richard Vaughn had been siphoning millions for years, evading taxes and laundering money through fake subsidiaries. I leaned back, heart pounding. This was my checkmate. With the right moves, I could not only destroy him, I could expose him for the fraud he truly was. The following day, I made my first call to a high-profile financial crimes journalist. I sent the files. Anonymously, within hours, the news exploded. Billionaire Richard Vaughn accused of fraud, money laundering. His assets were frozen. Investigators raided his offices. By noon, Vaughn Industries stock had plummeted. Richard tried to call me. I didn't answer. Instead, I made another move, using a series of anonymous entities. I started buying up shares of companies that were once out of my league. I played the game the way the real billionaires did, through silent acquisitions and mergers and smart financial plays. Within months, my name was whispered among Wall Street's elite. While Richard Vaughn crumbled under investigations, I turned my focus to my next target, Natalie Green. She thought she had gotten away with betraying me. She was wrong. Using my contacts, I discovered her latest venture, a luxury real estate firm built on fraudulent loans and shady investors. I set up a trap. I approached her under a new identity, a European billionaire looking to invest. She took the bait. The night we were supposed to finalize the deal, I walked into meeting, not as the investor, but as Ryan Carter. Her eyes widened. Ryan? Surprised? I smirked. I don't invest in scams. I dropped a folder on the table. Evidence of her fraudulent deals. She swallowed hard. What do you want? Your company, I said. Sign it over, or I take this to the authorities. With trembling hands, she signed. Natalie Green was finished. The stage was set. I sent one last invitation to Richard Vaughn, Natalie Green, and every major business figure who once laughed at me. A private event disguised as a high-profile business gala. The room was filled with elite investors, CEOs, and journalists. Richard and Natalie walked in, unaware of what was about to happen. I stood at the podium, looking down at them. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, tonight is special. Tonight, we talk about the real game of business. I gestured to the screen behind me. Live footage from news channels filled the room. Richard Vaughn's arrest warrant, Natalie's firm's downfall, my latest billion-dollar acquisition. Gasps filled the hall. Richard turned pale. Natalie shrank back. I stepped forward, meeting their eyes. Once you thought I was finished, I said. Now, I own everything you built. I didn't just come back. I came back stronger. Silence. Then applause. The same people who once mocked me now respected me. As the event ended, I walked outside. The city stretched before me. The same city where I once slept under bridges, fought for scraps, and was left for dead. But now, I was untouchable. Richard Vaughn would spend years fighting legal battles. Natalie Green had nothing left. And me, I had built an empire. Not through luck, not through shortcuts, but through strategy, resilience, and patience. If you've ever been betrayed, knocked down, or left with nothing, remember this. Your comeback is in your hands. Study the game. Stay patient. And when the time is right, strike harder than they ever expected. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button, drop a comment, and subscribe. Because this is just the beginning.